Is this a rare video right here?
Yes, it is. Deep Canvas was a way to get painted brushstrokes into 3D space.
I don't know if people nowadays understand how pivotal both shorts and movies were for technology.
I mean, these were all animated in Maya still. That was and still is Disney's tool.
Look how tiny his arms are. Sorry.
Thanks to Raycon for sponsoring this video. Stick around so you can find out how to get 30% off of Raycon holiday bundles.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Animators React. I'm Niko and I'm joined by Alex Snow, longtime guest, and a new guest, Patrick Osborne.
I directed Feast for Disney. I was the animation supervisor on Paperman and did another short for Google called Pearl. Gotten the chance to do a lot of really cool things. Excited to talk about some animation with you guys.
These guys are both actually very accomplished and I'm a little nervous here sitting between them. It's gonna be a really good time, so let's jump in. So you directed Paperman?
I was the animation supervisor. I did the shot, 3D and 2D. John Kars, who directed this, was an animator at Pixar. He was gonna make the short at Pixar way back, but ended up moving down to LA to be the animation director on Tangled. After Tangled, he asked the management if he could maybe revive the short, but not as a 3D thing, as kind of a 2D, 3D mix.
Can you talk about that? Because the coolest thing about Paperman, other than it's like the best short ever, it was kind of the first step into this new age of CG animation having more style and kind of taking a step towards the appeal of 2D animation.
It's on ones, which is weird in 2D. You normally don't put the effort in to do that many in-betweens and that tight of in-betweens. And the only reason you can do that is because we made software that kind of assisted with that and made it a little bit easier. How it works is you can draw vector lines on top of a rendered image. That rendered image had pixel accurate motion vectors, so it knew where the 3D animation was moving throughout the shot. So as you pressed play, that line would assume to travel with whatever was underneath. But you could also do one drawing, paste it 10 frames down, fix them, and then auto in-betweens while using the arcs and motion of the underneath animation. It's really amazing to have software being developed while you're making a film because you can come up with an idea that would make it easier, and sometimes the engineer is like, that might be possible today.
Yeah, it's just a commitment to it. I mean, it really sets the stage for, I mean, everyone knows Spider-Verse at this point. A good point to look at, a good point of reference is like the nose. When you turn, you can see the silhouette of the nose and you would draw that. You can see when it's not cutting the silhouette, it's more of like the nostril that gets emphasized, and then you see the rest of the nose with the shadow. But it has to calculate when that nose is turning, when to draw the bridge, when not to draw the bridge. It's giving you a lot out of nothing. It's doing complex calculations to understand art. It's like the computer's like, I will be an artist. But that's like very similar to what they did on Spider-Verse, and that's just like a small example of what it's trying to calculate on these CG animations to take the first step into kind of shifting to the 2D look.
The tech reminds me a little bit of what people have been doing with EB Synth. When you make a 3D animation, you can have each pixel give you the information of how fast the pixel is moving and where it's going, so you can theoretically pin things to those pixels. EB Synth kind of does the same thing, but with AI predicted motion vectors for video. It gets weird and smeary. I mean, you can see it in all the Joel Haver videos.
Yeah, the trick with doing it at a studio level is the editability and the fine pixel control. That became the biggest thing to really focus on, that it felt polished and complete still. And I still see errors, but like...
You see errors?
Yeah, whatever.
How did you achieve the shadows? Like on a close-up, you can see like the shadow is more like a brush.
It's all hand painted. I feel like hand painting is great as long as it's not a pain in the ass to like edit. If it's like real time adjusting to you and you can hit play and watch if it breaks or not, it's really kind of nice to work that way.
Yeah.
So the whole tool was fairly real time.
Were they using like CG shadows as a base and then painting over them?
You would draw the character over a finished render.
Gotcha.
So you'd have like a Pixar style render and you're like, time to handify this. And you go in and
it was flat.
It was a little flatter, but it was like a two-tone render kind of, so you could eyedropper the colors directly from the render.
Oh, cool. Why haven't we seen a movie come out with this kind of technology?
Whoever's running the studio kind of has this balance to make against how art house, how fresh, how unique.
Even though this feels like Disney and classic Disney, it's not necessarily the Disneys of the last 10 years. As soon as you see that poster or that trailer, you need to know that's a Disney movie and I want to see it.
When John Kars came up with doing it this style, and it was partially because we were there working on Tangled, and Glenn Keane, you'd animate a shot, and Glenn Keane would sit down at your desk for 3 hours and like redraw and animate the shot with you. Having that vibe in the studio, I think we were kind of feeling like, we don't want to forget this stuff. Could we do a high-tech version of it? And that was kind of inspired. If you play the Pet one, this was on LA Times. So this is how I could actually like even show it.
Is this a rare video right here?
Yes, it is. This combined with the feeling of 2D needs to come back in some way, and John having the short Paperman kind of ready to go and written, those things collided at the same time to make the Meander tool possible. Also, Meander, the Paperman drawing tool, was initially an effects tool, and it was meant to auto in between really complex effects drawings.
It's like when you're doing like smoke and fire. And
Yeah, there's things that are really tedious to draw. You could take a drawing and another drawing, and then you could draw an arc that represented the timing. So it would in between, but it wouldn't do it mechanically. So this is all Maya viewport, just coloring objects and then painting over a little bit.
Oh, really? Viewport rendering.
Viewport render.
Are you painting over every single frame by hand?
Yeah, for the smears and stuff.
But like that end image, that's in your
Basically a viewport,
right?
yeah.
Great, so there's just like really good texture work in 3D modeling.
No
made
textures. It's just polys.
Man, I feel like a big barrier to animation is just how time consuming it is. Where are we on that spectrum of like where animation is super accessible, anybody can do it and like make a movie, versus where it was, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, where you have to draw every single frame by hand on paper?
I think we're like 20 years behind the camera revolution. The beautiful, high quality cameras came down in accessibility. So like the actual vision and hand of the artist is a little more like right there in the front. And I think animation tools with Eevee and Unreal and Unity are making it come down to that level where it's a little more sandboxy. They're all still pretty techy. I think you still do need like that 4 or 5 years of like ramp into it with a specialty where you become a modeler or an animator or whatever. But once you've got like that foundation, the tool sets are really fun now. Our industry changes every 25, 30 years massively, and everyone just has to know it's gonna happen and like push forward.
Anytime I'm working with like a new tool or technique, what's the thing that it gives you for free?
Yeah.
Right? With a 3D program, changing perspectives is free. It's just you literally move the camera and it's fine. But rendering is not necessarily free. On the flip side, if you're dealing with like paint and pencils, rendering it is literally free. Like you put the paint on the paper, boom, it's right there.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to render it, it just instantly happens in front of you. But of course, changing a perspective on a drawing, well, now you have to redraw the whole drawing. Whatever medium you step into, the more you can leverage the tools. So like whatever they give you for free, take all of that and like use as much of that as possible.
And this is making the complex more simple, more achievable.
Why don't we put the old mill on? Because like this idea of pushing technology has always been at the core of why studios make shorts.
I saw in the opening, I believe this is 1937.
It says old in the title. But
This is old mill. Now, this is like gorgeous and full of color. So what's special about this short film that we're
Well,
about to check
it
out?
is the beginning of the legacy of using the short format to do something that pushes look and technology. More of what they're getting out of it is learning, and this was one of the earliest, putting color and sound and multiplane camera together that let them know that they could go and make Snow White.
I don't know if people nowadays understand how pivotal both shorts and movies were for technology. Like Pixar, all those great ones, like Nemo, you go, we've never gone under the water for a movie in CG.
It's like, oh, fur.
Fur, exactly. There's a reason beyond just creativity. Technology's been such a driving force, especially in CG. But even in 2D, people forget, like, you didn't have a multiplane camera. You couldn't have things on different layers. I mean, animation is already so complicated, like putting the sheet down and not having it a little bit to the right or left with the little pegs that are just made of paper. And now you have a multiplane camera with like 7 layers that you're doing this for.
It's planes of glass on a literal shelf that the camera's shooting through.
It's like 15 feet tall.
There's always pictures of like a dude smoking a cigarette, like working on it.
This is like so dark.
It's like old fairy tales.
It's like, no! Indiana Jones. Oh my God! Wow.
Perfect fit.
Little Deus Ex Machina right there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Was the animation at the time anywhere at this quality, or is this like an exceptional?
This is a huge exception.
How is this animation different from other stuff that was coming out around it?
Like, look at that.
It's good.
It's good.
This was like equivalent to the Pixar boom of like entering CG and you start asking the questions, how do you do that thing? How do you build? This is much more
This is
taking...
synced to music too, which I
And
believe is a
music.
big deal. Like think about doing that water effects even now.
Like,
I don't actually know how they do that.
I don't know how they... That's a good question. I do not
Like
know
what is
how they're
that
doing
through
that ripple effect.
glass? Are they moving something?
It is rippling.
I feel like it might actually be
I think it might actually be like
glass or something.
Yeah, like glass with water on it.
Or like a ripple glass that you move.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
I mean, I do love like that a lot of animation at this time really felt like a magic trick. One of my like weird internal goals when I make something is like, if I show this to Alex or Niko or anyone who does know and
Yeah.
it can still be a magic trick,
Yeah.
I'll be happy with myself.
Yeah.
That is a good trick.
One of Disney's kind of amazing secret weapons is a guy named Eric Daniels who worked on Deep Canvas for Tarzan. Deep Canvas was a way to get painted brush strokes into 3D space. That was one of the earlier paint strokes in 3D space. You know,
Yeah.
kind of things that I always thought was like pretty dang cool. I have no idea where in Tarzan it is though.
This part.
This is, yeah. Any tunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one you can start to feel it. With my 2022 eye, it shows itself.
Yeah.
Right?
But even still, only a little.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you're not looking for it, if you're looking at Tarzan, you just go, yeah, that was cool. I mean, the integration is so cool. I mean, this is kind of similar to what Blender is
And you
starting
can do
to
it now, yeah.
Yeah, you can do
I
it.
love that like every artist kind of has this now. You could grease pencil it
Yeah.
and sort of do it.
How are they getting the textures on there?
The way I understand it from Eric Daniels, you had the 3D as reference and you did a painting over it every so many frames and every brushstroke was remembered and it was created as a polygon and kind of like glued on to the stuff sort of manually. There were no like Cintiqs or anything yet, so it was like a graphics tablet, like an Intuos tablet kind of. And then of course Glenn Keane's incredible animation over top of everything doesn't hurt. Because that's what you're looking at, you know? Yeah, and I guess we can go to Feast now and then I can talk about getting to there.
Back to throw, looking left, the short pass to Miller. Miller goes on the roll, all the way back. Oh my God!
How does this evolve from Paperman? What were the big changes or what were the big things you ran into?
There's very little line work in this, but there is meander line work over the dog a lot of the times, and we could draw over the frames just like in Paperman. Not a lot of moving cameras, which makes things like that a lot easier. It was really the VFX soup, Josh Staub, on this that really kind of made it really work as a cohesive thing looking at Turley's paintings. Simple like toon look, but not toon shade. I hate toon shade.
Why do you hate toon shade?
It creates too much detail. So if you look at the dark and light lighting on Winston when he's lit, the lighting on him is rendered but then changed. So we made it so you could alter the dark and the light divide, so it wasn't giving you too much of that 3D detail. A lot of the times the nose is shaded, complicated, and it gets all into nooks and crannies on a 3D model, and we want it to be clean.
So you guys developed a tech for that, or?
Yeah, it was similar to Paperman, but it was a way to kind of glue on nuke masks on top of 3D models that would track with it sometimes. You want it to look like light a little bit, but not be literal light.
I like also like his beard is just a texture and then a few hairs.
The trick with things like that is when line weight and line quality isn't considered from the camera's point of view. So you never want to see a line as it wraps around get thin, like it's projected onto paper. And these are all camera-facing polys or vectors rendered at the end. So it's one or the other. I think it's kind of a mix here.
If you have your digital lines in the shot, like this character here, this beard, let's say he got up and walked away from us. You wouldn't want those lines to get thinner,
No.
as if the artist is using sharper and sharper
Yeah.
pencils the farther away he gets. You want him to stay the same way.
Yeah, it gives away the trick. And dimensional things like that are the hardest. You really want a level of detail thing where things are disappearing or redrawing differently. If it's really smooth, you'll notice it. So when you animate stuff like that, you want to have like moments of hits that you can disguise the swap out of anything that you're doing like that.
I mean, even if you look at his lids, it's like you're designing for the shot and the camera angle. Like when his eyelids are closed, they're not just two flat lines. You know, you curve them depending on the attitude, the emotion, and the angle of the head.
Hey, hey, hey.
How are you doing the edge work? Like the edges on this, other than Inside Out, I don't know if I've ever seen this accomplished successfully in CG. And Inside Out, it does it with basically a fuzzy texture, which this is not.
This is not that. This is way easier than that. This is a Paperman had the same. It was a noise field, it looked like TV noise if you paused it. But that noise field was fading between a few other noise patterns every 8 frames or so, and then the motion vectors of the character smear it. But if you hit play and just watch the noise pattern, you can see the animation in it, like a magic eye. And that's used to mask the edges of the character in Nuke. You bleed the characters outward, you bloom them a little bit, and then you layer it back on top of itself or on top of the background with a noise mask. I mean, these were all animated in Maya still. That was and still is Disney's tool. My philosophy on tools now is like do what the computer's good at for whatever it's good at, like you're saying. Have it try to do what the artist would do, but make it easily fixable. I'm a total Blender person now.
Really?
Yeah. I'm just a fan of live development. With a big feature, you get to like lock things in and things can't break, and you want to make sure that you're consistent. But a lot of what I'm doing is like doing tests to pitch movies and TV shows, and I need to be flexible, but also be able to do that with whatever tool is at hand, and Blender just has a lot of that. You know, last year I did the only live action thing I've ever done, which was a concert film with Billie Eilish, and I previs the entire thing in Blender because I was like, I want to know where to tell the guys to put the camera.
Right.
You guys know how copyrighted music is on YouTube. If you want to learn more about this, also a mind-blowing fact about the That's All Folks, Porky Pig ending and the Hollywood Bowl, check it out, this episode extended on our website, quarterdigital.com. So we're looking at all these like examples of like artists spending months in like passion and skill. We have one end of the spectrum, and now we're gonna go to the other end of the spectrum because it's educational. It's good to critique things. It helps us figure out how to be better. Yeah. So let's take a look at Bratz Rock Angelz, part 5.
Look, I can see Big Ben.
Cheerio! I see some Batman the Animated Series inspired background.
Yep. Wow. It's like a video game shader. You know, you talk about the appeal of characters, and I really feel like Bratz has like defined the peak of character appeal.
Hi. Hi. Missing something?
The dialogue is, if you haven't seen this clip, the dialogue is equally as fantastic. It's in London, you can tell because there's a red phone booth.
They're doing like an Akira slide? Like,
yeah.
What's a little bit shocking is that opening environment. It's almost great. I mean, I don't know where in the world has these gothic, shadowy towers.
It's London. There's a red phone booth. It tells you right there. I mean, there's no deformation on their faces either. Like their eyes and stuff move along the model, but there's no wrinkles created when you like raise your eyebrow. There's no volumetric change.
So it's like the eyebrows are just like textures that are sliding.
And like the British flag is like weirdly projected on the whole helmet, kind of wraparound style, so it doesn't read from any angle.
I mean, definitely they just Google image the flag and put it on as a
texture. But I'd like, transition up to the moon. That's
how the scene
match
started.
Cut to camera aperture. Ooh, a little artistry.
There's some ambition there.
Guys, I've had an over-the-top emotional breakthrough.
Yeah, I love the dudes. I love the dudes like 1997 boy band haircut on the other dude. The hair is like actually sometimes.
It's simulated, it looks like. Yeah, I mean, everything's moving pose to pose, which is fine, but the computer's doing more than the animator here.
So the animator's just like hitting one pose, jump forward 2 seconds, hitting a second pose, and then the computer's like, bzzz,
yeah, and then maybe
slides.
like one in between on where it needs to. Like if the arm freaks out, they're connecting it, but things are just kind of moving and holding or holding with a little bit of change into the next pose.
These jobs exist. Companies want to make stuff like this.
Yeah.
And if you're learning, it's better to learn while someone pays you.
And get used to a pipeline.
And hopefully
and
the pay's okay. And I think, getting used to like actually hitting poses on a character and delivering something on a schedule, which is probably like 30, 40 minutes to
per
animate.
day.
I imagine the schedule is insanely fast.
Yeah.
Animation takes time to polish, and it all starts looking like this. This is like what layout kind of looks like in some ways. And then you just spend more time making it better until they take it away from you.
there's so much to learn to be able to just animate anything, even poorly, that you get obsessed with getting better at that, getting as good as the movies you see. You don't realize that that's one aspect of the job. There's so much more to working for somebody than working on your own in your own time. It's like there's deadlines, there's opinions, there's a workflow you have to develop where you can change things when you get notes so that you're not just like, there it is. And you're like, okay, what if you move this little thing? You're like, that'll blow everything up. That's not a good place to be in. So, I mean, it's going to happen regardless. So,
someone messaged me the other day with all these like finished projects not getting released.
Yeah.
And them saying like, I put myself into all this stuff. I take this so personally. How do you continue to be passionate and make good work when this kind of stuff can happen? And I'm like, you have to enjoy what you're doing during the day and not make your job satisfaction be a part of the release or the reception of what other people think. You only have control about how serious and how much effort you put into the actual stuff you're doing day to day, and kind of have to be kind of stoic about, I can't control that other stuff, so it can't be why you do the work. And it can't be a part to makes you
it's
happy.
more about your own growth or experiences.
Like if you're learning and enjoying this, I think it's awesome. Like and use that as a stepping stone to do better stuff later.
Also, that's an achievement. As much as we can rag on it, like that is an achievement. Who knows how many animators were on that and what they had to deliver? If you told a Disney animator to make as much footage as they probably had to do, I don't know how different it would look. Also, at these big studios, you have libraries of poses that have been looked at, designed. You have a better starting point. If you're given a rig that barely works and no prep work because you just have to go, it's harder to get to the point they're getting to. It's a much different process to elevate what's already there, where a lot of the decisions are made, than it is to be given a shot where you go, she's looking at the computer, figure it out, it's 10 minutes long. And you're like, what? These two sequences together is the size of a feast, and almost nothing happens from what I can tell. And they're like, you'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's a feat to make anything and finish it. So there's always that. I do like
Look how tiny his arms are. Sorry. It's like a baby.
At the end of the Filmcast episodes where they review movies, they always end it with, and so-and-so, that whatever director made a film, and that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, there you go.
Regardless of what we think.
If you guys have any stop motion or experimental animation suggestions, shout it out, let us know, and take a look.
Hey guys, I'm Jordan and I'm here to talk to you about our sponsor today, Raycon. My favorite thing about wireless earbuds, first and foremost, is the fact that I can work out in them and they don't have a wire that's getting me all tangled up, and they have a super long battery life. And if I feel like they're gonna be dying soon, well, I can just pop them right back into its rechargeable case. Raycons comes in an array of different colors and they can match your own personal style. Also, the holidays are coming up, so if you're looking for a great gift to give someone, Raycons are definitely the way to go. Not only can you choose the everyday buds, but they also have the fitness earbuds as well. And check this out, the everyday headphones. We're all working on a tight budget, but if you click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/corridorcrew, you can get 20% off, or save even bigger and get 30% off Raycon's exclusive holiday bundles. All right, well, I have more work to do, so I'm gonna put on my earbuds and go jam out at my desk, but you guys continue Animators React and have an amazing holidays. Ho, ho, ho!
Thank you so much for watching, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, Alex and Patrick. These guys didn't want to promote anything, so I'm gonna have them tell you to watch another movie. Patrick.
There's a short on YouTube called Mall Stories by Elizabeth Ito, and it's wonderful and sweet, and she's amazing, so go check that out.
And how about you, Alex?
I literally was gonna say Mall Stories.
What? Really?
No,
Oh, yeah,
no.
come on.
No, they screened it at the mall here, and I was just talking about it yesterday, about Chromosphere Studios and Mall Stories. So double watch that movie.
Cool, enjoy Mall Stories and consider subscribing. I'm not even gonna promote our stuff, just go watch Mall Stories. Good luck.